But now you should mute yourself, Nagapatni.
Okay.
I don't like when it's done like that. I wouldn't mind if you did now because
oh, okay. Krishna Kum wants you to see. Oh, I can't. Let's see. Let's see here. There. She has this beautiful new outfit on. Okay, that'll work. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Vrindavan Dham. We're here for a few days for Holi. My name's Madhavan. My name's Madhavananda Das. These are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is our 88th session in a series we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. And today we have a very provocative title, Even Death Cannot Stop a Devotee. So we'll go ahead and say a few prayers to begin. Gora Graganya Gana Gotra Goloduhadam Gauranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramschaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Hudirayat Vedi Ramayanishchaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adhavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yet Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Be Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Vrindavan Dham. We're here for a few days with our friend Nagapatni Mataji and a few others for Holi and for Gaur Purnima. So we've been reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 47th chapter, which is called Brahma Gita. And I want to continue with that, but I'd like to look back to a verse which is written by Srila Jiva Goswami in his Laghu Vaishnava Darshani Commentary to chapter 46. Arthaika Sadanam Krishnam Artan Braja Janam Shatan Tam Chatashvashakam Bhaktam Artyavanda Durashaya. He describes it in sorrow with a hopeless heart, I offer my pranams, my vandana to Krishna, who's the only sarana, the only shelter for those persons who are 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗃, who are suffering, for the Artan Braja Janams, to the suffering people of Braj. And I offer my vandana to 𝗗𝗲𝘃, who alleviated their suffering. So, as we've been discussing, this 47th chapter, this Brahma Gita, is described by some Gaudiya Vaishnavas as the most important chapter in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, more than anything in the first canto or the 12th canto, or even in the 10th canto, and even Krishna's appearance, or even the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters about the Ras Leela, because this 47th chapter, the Brahma Gita, is part of the reason for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. And we see in Untitled Chapter 14 of Chaitanya Charitamrita how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing the mood of Srimati Radharani when she was in Braj, in a place known as 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗃𝗃, near to Nandagaon, during this Brahma Gita. So let's look back a little bit at a couple of the verses prior to this. Text number 35. Yata durachare preshte mana avishavartate strinam chana tata chetaha sani 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. When her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he's present before her. This is Krishna's message to the gopis from 𝗗𝗲𝘃. And we spoke something about this verse in our last session, and based on some statements from Kunti Devi in the first canto, chapter 8 of the Bhagavatam, her prayers, and also other statements of the Bhagavatam and our acharyas. Kunti Devi, she states that Vipadashantu tasatvat tatta tatta jagadguru bhavato darshanam yat sharapunar bhava darshanam, that I wish that these calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again, my dear Krishna, because when we see you, it means we no longer see repeated birth and death. So in our last session, we spoke something about really what is a problem, what is suffering, and what is happiness. So I'd like to begin our session today with text number 36, and I'm hoping to go on to text number 37 also. Our acharyas have commented on these two verses together. Let's see, maybe I can put this on the screen here. Nagapatni, you can just nod your head or give me a thumbs up. You can hear me okay? The volume's good? Okay, great, thanks. Okay. Maya Veshamana Krishnam Vimukta Shesha Vrittiyat Anusmaryantyatho Mama Anusmaryancho Mam Nityam Achiram Mam Upaishyata. Krishna tells the gopis that because your mana is Maya Vesha, it's completely absorbed in me, and Vimukta Shesha Vrittiyat, Vimukta means liberated. It has there's no other attachment for your mind. They translated here that's free from all other engagement. Because of that, anusmarantyo mam nityam, that nityam, you're always remembering me constantly, and because of that, achiram mam upaishyata, you'll very soon have me again in your presence. And this is a very important point for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We want to associate with Krishna directly. Krishna consciousness is a mystical process. It's not a religious process. It's not a theoretical process, but it's something which is directly experienced. And through separation, paradoxically, there's a kind of union. As we've commented before, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sarita Darshani explains the word viraha, or meaning separation, as a compound of two words, vi and raha. Vi, he says, means vishesha rup, or a special kind, a special form of something. And ra means rahasya milan. It means a special form of mysterious union. So it's externally separation, but internally union. And it's real union. We want to be with a person in the heart, not just externally. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Darshani Commentary on this text 36 that we were just reading, he says that the gopis, when they heard from Uddhava, Krishna's message, they shook their head, no. And they said, Uddhava, this, what you're telling now, you should also keep this in a treasure box of your heart. Because now Krishna, he's enjoying with the women of Mathura, but we know that sometime in the future, he's also going to be away from their eyes. They won't also be able to see him. And then at that time, you can give your message to them. It's not appropriate for us. Because right now, we don't want to hear this message. Right now, this message that you're giving us, it's unacceptable to the women of Braj. And previously, even when Krishna was present here and visible to our eyes, and Yugaitam Nimeshena, even just one moment, he was gone, it felt like a great yuga. During each minute of the separation we would have from Krishna, the gopis, they would go mad. And they would draw Krishna into their minds with thousand-fold feelings of separation. And so then the gopis were speaking in this way a little harshly to Uddhava, to Krishna, indirectly to Krishna through Uddhava. Uddhava then replied to them. He said, okay, my dear ladies, he said, if you don't like this message, then I'll tell you something else. I've given you so many different messages. And so then he repeated this verse. And Uddhava was telling him basically that because vimukta, you've completely rejected all your homes, your families, and everything else, and you've completely absorbed your minds in me, then very soon you're going to attain my personal presence. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita tells the devotees, he says, Mamanam bhavamad bhakto majaji mam namaskaru, that you should completely absorb your mind in me. And this is an important fundamental difference between Krishna consciousness and mundane religion, or what Prabhupada sometimes would call churchianity. We want to completely absorb our minds in Krishna. And doing that is so pleasurable. There's so much happiness in that God himself becomes confused, and he thinks, well, the gopis are getting more happiness than I'm getting because they're devotees, so I also have to become a devotee, and I have to absorb my mind. And therefore he becomes as Krishna Chaitanya. And that person who's Chaitanya is always conscious of Krishna. So let's go on to the next verse. This is text 37, this chapter. And I'll also put this on the screen. Hi, Krishna Brinda Sundari. Nice to see you. Sarvadrik Prabhu. Hi, Krishna. Other devotees. I want to encourage the devotees, if anybody has any reflections or comments, there's a few devotees who are on Zoom with us. You can make comments later on in Zoom, or if you're on Facebook with us, and please also share any reflections you might have toward the end. So text number 37. Yamaya kridita ratyam vanismin braja ashtitaha alabdha rasa kalyanyo mapurvat mad virya chintaya. Although some gopis, Krishna says, this is Krishna's message to the gopis through Uddhava, although some gopis had to remain in the cowherd village and so could not join the Ras dance to sport with me at night in the forest, they were nonetheless fortunate. Indeed, they attained me by thinking of my potent pastimes. So at this point, the gopis, again, they're not accepting what Krishna's saying. So then Krishna's offering them some proof that, don't you remember during a Ras Leela that some of you weren't able to come to me because your husbands were stopping you? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarta Darshani, he says that Krishna's offering some proof to the gopis that about his personal presence. And Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshani, he says that Krishna's telling them that in our Prakat Leela, Vani Smin, means in the Prakat Leela in Vrindavan, some of you didn't attain me during the Ras Leela. But still, their husband stopping you couldn't keep you from coming to me. So this reminds me of a couple similar verses from the Rasa Panchadhyaya in the 29th chapter, the 10th canto, text number 10 and 11. Maybe I should also put these on our screen here. Very interesting. This discussion at this point is mirrored by something previously Krishna said. Let's see. Let me share the screen here. Here we go. Dusaha preshta viraha tibratapa dusa dutta subaha dhyana praptat chuta shlesha nivritya kshina mangalaha tameva paramatmanam jada budhyapi sangataha jahar gunamoyam deham sadya prakshina bandhanaha. It's describing that for the gopis who couldn't go to see Krishna because their husbands or family members held them back, dusasa preshta, they felt this terrible viraha, this terrible separation, which was dusaha. Dusaha means that it was so very, very painful, they couldn't tolerate it. A separation from their beloved. It caused an intense agony, which was tibratapa. Tibra means that it was a very, very intense, very burning pain. It was a kind of fire, viraha agni. And that viraha agni burned away any kind of subtle contamination that might be there in them. And then by meditating on Krishna, those gopis, they realized, they experienced the embrace of Krishna. And the ecstasy that they experienced then, previously they experienced this tibratap, or this burning fire of separation. But then when they experienced this great happiness, then at that time, that ecstasy that they experienced, that also destroyed their material piety. And they translate here, although Krishna is the supreme soul, these girls simply thought of him as their male lover and associated with him in that intimate mood. Thus their karmic bondage was nullified and they abandoned their gross material bodies. So this is the same point that's being made here by 𝗘𝗃𝗲 Goswami. In 𝗘𝗃𝗲 Goswami, he's explaining that because the gopis were feeling some intolerable separation from their beloved, they felt terrible, terrible agony. And it was causing them to tremble. And he says that when people in general, they hear about the gopis' extreme agony and separation from their beloved. I remember Brajabanita, who I may be watching right now, I think so. When Brajabanita first heard about the separation, the gopis that were feeling from Krishna and their terrible pain, she asked, how is this something auspicious? This sounds terrible. And indeed, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that it's the most terrible pain, the most terrible poison, but at the same time, it's the greatest ecstasy and the greatest nectar, in a contradictory kind of way, in a paradoxical kind of way. So when people hear about the separation that the gopis were having, then the people, they give up thousands, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says in his commentary, thousands of inauspicious things. Inauspicious things, even things which are as terrible as suffering in the fires of hell, or the powerful poison that was swallowed by Lord Shiva. And he says that people, when they hear about the gopis' love and separation, they're able to give up their terrible false ego. And they feel themselves defeated and shaken. It's very important, dear devotees, that we hear something about Krishna and the gopis. Srila Prabhupada famously, in an interview with the editors of Back to Godhead magazine, they asked him a very interesting question. As Srila Prabhupada said, we know that we shouldn't speak very much about Krishna's intimate pastimes with the gopis in public. Should we write about these things in Back to Godhead? And Prabhupada paused for a moment. He said, no, better you don't. And then again, he thought for a moment, and he added to that, and he said, but don't boycott the gopis. We want the gopis. It's necessary to hear about the gopis. Srila Prabhupada translated Krishna book for the benefit of all the people in the world. He wanted everyone to read it, including the 5 chapters of the Ras Leela, because Vikriditam Vrajavadubiridam Chavishna, whoever hears those pastimes of Vikriditam, the loving pastimes of Krishna and the gopis, their lust in the heart will go away. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that when we hear about the gopis' feelings of separation from Krishna, we feel defeated and shaken. We give up our false ego. Because those gopis, when they begin to meditate on Krishna, who's achyuta, who's beyond all the senses, Krishna personally became manifest and he came to them and he embraced them. And the gopis, they experienced such ecstasy in that embrace that their joy made all their good fortune, whatever good fortune they may have, having a handsome husband or beautiful children, made all their good fortune, both material and spiritual, seem very, very insignificant. So this implies that when other persons see how happy the gopis became upon embracing Krishna, they feel that thousands and millions of different auspicious objects in this world are insignificant. And even the sense gratification that you might get in the heavenly planets or in the subterranean hellish planets, or even the pleasure of Brahman, Brahmananda, all those things become very, very insignificant when we hear about the distress of the gopis and the joy that they got in that separation from Krishna. That hearing about this can purify us of all of our past activities, both sinful and pious. So this is a very, very important thing. And this Anartha Nibritti Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this will come just by hearing about this. Now, other authorities, they say that by the power of Yoga Maya, the gopis' bodies, they disappeared in a way that no one noticed. But other people say that the gopis actually left their bodies, their physical bodies, and then in Nitya Leela, they attained Krishna. So this is a very interesting subject, and this is something I wanted to focus on today. Krishna, in his message to the gopis through Uddhava, is telling them that basically there's nothing that can stop you from coming to me. Prabhupada, once he said, let the bombs drop on our heads. We'll just chant Hare Krishna. And he spoke about how during wartime in Kolkata, they just blackened out all the windows and everything. And he just sat and chanted japa. And he was perfectly peaceful and perfectly happy. This is a message that Krishna is giving to the gopis through Uddhava. That really there's nothing you have to worry about. There's no bombs, there's no warfare, there's nothing you have to fear. You just fix your minds upon me. It's said that once 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗃 Babaji, when he was in Navadvip, some young children started teasing him because he looked a little strange. He had dreadlocks and looked a little crazy and wore some old torn cloth and things. And children started throwing stones at him. And at that time, 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗃 Babaji became angry. And he stopped and he turned around and he started shouting. And he said, Krishna, if you don't stop this right now, I'm going to tell your mother. And you're going to be in big trouble. He wasn't seeing the secondary cause. And this is a very, very important point, dear devotees. In our world today, we can talk about Russia invading Ukraine, and we can talk about the pandemic, we can talk about this thing, we can talk about that thing. But what comes out of our mouths, by the noise, by the sound that comes out of our mouths, we will be able to tell who is our Father. And what are we taking shelter of? Are we taking shelter of something mundane? Are we looking for external causes? Because people in the bodily conception of life, when things happen that they have no control over, they become very, very confused. And they start looking, what is the source of this problem? And today, some of them start looking on YouTube, or they start looking for some conspiracy theory. And, oh, this is the cause. It's Mr. Putin. or it's Bill Gates, or it's this thing or that thing. And who knows? It might be those things, because really when you're talking about is karma, if we scratch a little deeper beyond the apparent cause of Mr. Putin or Bill Gates or this thing or that thing, it's people's karma. But when you talk about karma, karma is so infinitely complicated, nearly infinitely complicated, that it becomes so confusing and so impossible to understand it. But I want to repeat what I've heard from my Guru Maharaj. I want to take shelter of my spiritual father. And when problems come, I want to think, what would he see? What would he speak about? The six Goswamis of Vrindavan were staying here in Braj at a time which was terrible. There were Muslims invading Vrindavan, and they were murdering, torturing the Brijbasis, the Brahmins, the Pujaris, and they were doing so many different atrocities. But if you read in the writings of the six Goswamis, how much do you hear about that? They weren't criticizing, they weren't trying to figure out some solution to get rid of the Muslims or overcome them or anything. They were just absorbed in Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they were writing during the time when the British were occupying India. And they also did a lot of atrocities. They killed a lot of different people. They controlled so many people. They did so many bad things. But how many times do you read about that in the writings of Bhaktivinoda and Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati? They were absorbed in something more important. They were absorbed in the message of their spiritual father. So when we open our mouth, people will see who's really our father. What are we taking shelter of? What are we looking for? Because everyone's confused in this world. Everyone who's suffering in this world is looking for what is the cause of this. But devotees see that Krishna is Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause of causes. And some devotees in some places in the world, they may see some particular external cause, and some other devotees in another part of the world, they may see yet another cause. That's natural. Just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the beginning of his book, Chaitanya Sikshamrita, he says that there's so many different places in the world, and people speak different languages, they drink different water, they eat different substances, the sunshine is different, the weather is different, their culture is different, and they perceive things in a different way. So where is the question of unity? Srila Prabhupada said we have unity in diversity. In other words, we accept diversity. In other words, we don't insist that everyone has to think in the same way that I do. And we don't fight over secondary causes. Rather, devotees, the unity of the devotees is that they see that Krishna is behind everything. So, in his commentary on this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he quotes the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, a famous verse, Bhakti Pareshānubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chaisha 𝗘𝗃𝗃_𝗲 Prapadyamanasya Yatashnata Shustushti Pushtikshut Apayo Nugasham. That when we begin to practice bhakti, some things happen. We get bhakti itself, we get devotion, but at the same time, we directly perceive Krishna. Pareshānubhava, we directly perceive Krishna. And the third thing that happens is that we become detached, virakti. We become detached from material things. In the same way, this verse describes that when someone starts eating, then they get some pleasure, they get some nourishment, and they get relief from hunger. And that relief from hunger, or this bhakti and this perception of Krishna and this detachment from material things, they come increasingly with each bite. That's like a person when they're eating. So in a similar way, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says this perception of Krishna that Krishna's telling the gopis about through Uddhava, that Krishna's telling them, you don't have to worry when you can't see me and you're suffering and separation from me. I'm there. And he gives the example of the gopis who were being held back at the time of the Ras Leela. And our acharyas, I've described different things. It's a very big subject matter. But those gopis left their bodies. They died. But even that death wasn't didn't hold them back from Krishna. It didn't stop them from coming to Krishna. So we should understand that the more that we absorb ourselves in Krishna, the more Krishna will appear, and nothing can stop a devotee, not even death. In the second canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 8, there's a nice verse, 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗃 nityam 𝗗𝗲𝘃 kalena nati durgena bhagavan 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗁. That Krishna very quickly, 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗁, very quickly enters into the heart of a devotee who's 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗃 nityam, who's always hearing with faith about Krishna's activities. And 𝗗𝗃 Chakravati Thakur, in his Darshani, he comments, 𝗗𝗃 smana prayatnaha shravana 𝗗𝗃𝗃 bhaktasya navakashyaka ityaha shinvata iti. So prayatnam vinapi bhagavan swameva hridayam pavishatiti shravana kirtanadinameva smarnamiti gyapitam. That we should make some effort. It's important that we make some efforts, some endeavor on our part for hearing and chanting. And he says, but even if you don't make such endeavor, still Krishna will enter into the heart. And he says that hearing and chanting here means remembering. In other words, it's not necessary to try to do some artificial remembrance, but automatically it'll come just by hearing and chanting. We were hearing recently from some of our friends in Dnipropetrovsk and also in Kiev, in Ukraine. And the devotees who are remaining there, they're distributing thousands of plates of prasadam every day. And they're sending some videos, and you can hear sometimes in the background gunshots and explosions and things. And they told us that although during the previous time they were putting on big Rath Yatra festivals and preaching, the response from the public wasn't so great. But all of a sudden now, so many people who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, they're coming to the temple and they're donating food. And the devotees are distributing so much prasadam. People are coming and staying in the temple in Kiev and other places, and they're coming and sitting down with the devotees and doing kirtan because they're getting some relief in that kirtan, because Krishna is entering into their heart. In Krishna Lila Stava of Srila Sanatana Goswami, he describes this in a very beautiful way, Rupa Namashrita Vishta. He says that when we meditate on the Rup, the form of the Lord, and Nam, the name of the Lord, Ashrita, we take shelter of those things. And so in this case, the examples we're giving of the devotees in Kiev and in Dnipropetrovsk, they're taking shelter of Krishna. They're not taking shelter of guns and bombs. They're not trying to attack other people. They're not writing bad things on Facebook about Mr. Putin or this or that. They're taking shelter of the form of Krishna, the deity. They're taking shelter of Krishna's name. Rupa Namashrita Avishta. And when that happens in Avishta, Krishna enters into their hearts. And as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was previously saying, even if someone is not listening in an attentive way, even if he's not hearing attentively, still Krishna will come into their heart. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this in Harinam Chintamani in chapter 4. Vaishnava nikate jari vaishe kata lakshana deha hoite hoy Krishna Shakti nirasharan. That if you just come near Vaishnava nikate, nikate means you come close to, you come close to a Vaishnava. How long? Vaishe kata lakshana. Even just for a few moments, you come close to a Vaishnava. Then at that time, deha hoite hoy Krishna Shakti nirasarana. There's some Krishna Shakti which is coming from the deha, or the body of that Vaishnava. And you'll come in contact with that Shakti. And if you have faith, he says, Sehi Shakti Shadavan Hridoye Pasya Bhaktira Udoye Kore Deha Kampaya. If you have faith in that devotee, then that Shakti enters into your heart. Sehi Shakti Shadavan, if you're a Shadavan Jan, then hridoya pasya, it enters into your heart, and at that time, deha kampaya, it makes your body start to tremble. And bhaktir udoya, bhakti begins to arise in the heart of that devotee. Jebasila Vaishnavera Nikate Shadhaya Tahara Hridoye Bhakti Hoibe Udoya. That someone, if you just with this faith, if you Shraddha, you stay faithfully near a Vaishnav. And this is what we see is happening with the non-devotees. They didn't have faith before. They say, yeah, maybe you guys are just doing something for money. You're just doing something to become popular, trying to sell your books or something. But now they see these guys are really serious about it. Bombs are going off, and they're just sitting down and closing their eyes and chanting Hare Krishna. Wow, that's powerful. Huh? So then they want to come and they want to stay near the devotees, and they have faith in the devotees. Then at that time, Tahara Hridoya Bhakti Hoibe Udoy. They'll find that bhakti begins to arise in their heart. And we heard from one of the devotees in Dnipropetrovsk recently that some of the persons now, they're coming and donating boga, they're coming and helping cut vegetables with the devotees to distribute prasadam, and they're coming and sitting in the kirtans. And some of them are saying, actually, even after the war is over, I think I'd like to start coming and doing this with you guys regularly. Bhakti is arising in their hearts. So this is the nature of bhakti. When we take shelter of Krishna, we take shelter of Krishna's devotees. Then there's no obstacles. Sometimes even, our acharyas have described, Krishna sometimes allows a devotee to go back to the spiritual world in the same body that they have. And an example is given of Dhruva Maharaj. That yenine nirjata somya guna jivena chitta jaha bhakti yogena man nishto madbhavaya prapadyate. There's someone who is very nishta in bhakti yoga. That person, he conquers over the modes of material nature. And madbhavaya prapadyate, he dedicates himself to Krishna. He gets pure love of Krishna. So we should understand then from this discussion that the gopis who couldn't see Krishna, who couldn't directly go to Krishna, it's like sometimes now the war is going on or the pandemic is going on. Sometimes we can't go to the temple, and devotees feel very frustrated about that. We can't go and we can't see Gurudev. But what happens when we feel some intense suffering, anxiety like that tapa, that fire, it burns off our subtle bodies. And 𝗗𝗃 Chakravarti Thakur says that rather than the devotion becomes more and more prominent, and as we burn off those subtle anarthas and things, we feel ourselves being embraced by Krishna. So I'd like to give some example of this also. In the Bhagavatam, we hear something about the Nagapatnis, or the Yagyapatnis, the wives of the Vedic Brahmins, and how, although they were suffering, they were completely focused on Krishna. Actually, I'd like to share something with you before we go there from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which really struck me, something we were reading recently. I'll read this and you can see on our screen. The danger experienced during an unfavorable condition produces a favorable condition for the worship of the Lord the very next moment. So really, what's favorable and what's unfavorable? The danger that we experience in its unfavorable situations, bombs dropping on our head, we don't know what's going to happen, but that danger that we experience, it produces a favorable condition for worship of the Lord. And that's why Kunti Devi prays, Vipadashanti Tasasvat. Bring on these problems. We want to develop the mentality of the gopis of Vrindavan. And as one great Vaishnava once said, that if you want a life free from anxiety, if you want a life full of peace, then you'll have to fall down from Goloka Vrindavan, you'll have to fall down to Vaikuntha. Because only in Vaikuntha is everything very peaceful. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he goes on to say that all the objects of the visible world are ingredients for Krishna's service. Everything is meant for Krishna's service. Bombs are meant for Krishna's service. War is meant for Krishna's service. Everything is meant for Krishna's service. The mentality of aversion to the service of Krishna bewilders our mind regarding the objects of this world and engages us in material enjoyment. So when we don't want to serve Krishna, then Bhayam dvitiya binivesa tashat, the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam says this bhaya, this fear arises because dvitiya, we see some difference. We see, oh, my life used to be peaceful, now it's not peaceful. But for someone who's a devotee like Gaura-Kishora Babaji, even when the boys are throwing stones at him, he doesn't become angry with the boys. He sees Krishna as doing everything. That's a very high thing. That's a very difficult thing. And yes, it's a fact that many of us are not on that platform. We have mixed devotion. And having mixed devotion, we're going to see some secondary causes, and we're going to get absorbed in that sometimes. That's okay. We shouldn't hate devotees also who are absorbed in seeing those secondary causes. Rather, we should see that they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're practicing bhakti, they're very wonderful, but maybe what they're speaking, it's not exactly what we would hear from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't complain about the British. He didn't tell us we should go on a campaign about this or that against Russia. Prabhupada saw Krishna everywhere. And he said the solution for everything is Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, when we see a relationship between Krishna and the entire world to the awakening of transcendental knowledge, the poisonous fruit of fame can't swallow us. Fame is a very, very difficult thing. And then he quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Tomara sevaya dukkha hoya jata seito paramashuk. That whatever problems that I had, Tomara sevaya, in your service, dukkha hoya jata, whatever problems or pain that I get, seito paramasuk. That's the greatest source of happiness for me. We will become tested severely, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in another place. Krishna is going to severely test us. When the test comes, an intelligent person is happy. An unintelligent person thinks, oh my God, there's going to be a test in school. I'm not going to go. I'll call in sick. And then what happens is you have to stay back a grade. You can't progress. But an intelligent person thinks, oh, there's a test going on. This is very good. An intelligent person who's in a relationship, a young man is in a relationship with a young girl, when the girl tests him, because loving relationships means tests. A boy and a girl, they're always testing. How faithful will you be? Are you interested in somebody else? Are you going to stick with me? There's always tests going on in any kind of relationship. But when a person sees the other person's testing me, they become very happy. This is good. Now I can show my love. My love is being tested. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he goes on to say, this is the feeling of a Vaishnava. He says, try to follow this example. If all our anarthas are dovetailed in the service of Krishna, then some anarthas transform into arthas and become the cause of eternal benefit leading toward the goal of life. Yes, again, we have some attachments. We're mixed devotees. But if we apply even our mixed devotion to Krishna, don't apply it to something mundane, apply it to Krishna. Then if we do that, then it becomes the cause of eternal benefit leading toward the goal of life. The previous character of Bilvamangala Thakur, the history of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the anarthas in the form of Prakashananda's dry arguments ultimately transformed into devotional service to Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, therefore, don't worry about previous anarthas. In another lecture, Radhakund once, he said that our goal is anartha nibriti. It's not, our goal is artha prabriti, not anartha nibriti. We're not interested in just giving up our material desires. That's not our goal. Our goal is not just to lead a comfortable life. Our goal is not just to find out the secondary cause of problems. If you go down that rabbit hole, who knows if you'll ever come out again, if you'll ever remember Krishna again. We should focus upon Krishna and see Krishna is a source of everything. Don't worry about our anarthas even. We just focus upon Krishna. He says, as far as the present anarthas are concerned, if your hearing and chanting is very strong, they cannot display their prominence. Our lifespan is short, so we should sincerely serve Krishna until our very end. To follow the path of the Mahajanas is the only means to achieve auspiciousness. We want to follow the path of our father, of our previous acharyas. He said, when I think that I'm well, everything's going good, he said, then I become averse to Krishna. And as a result, I consider senior devotees to be junior to me. It's a very dangerous thing. We start thinking, yes, they're asking me to give class. I'm giving class online. We had 100 hits. We had 1,000. We had 1,000,000 hits. I'm better than the senior devotees. That's a very, very dangerous situation. He said, this is why, understanding this, Krishna puts me in different distressful conditions, such as ill health and other inconveniences. Because then I become humbled. My pride becomes crushed. But if I have perfect health, if I don't get old, if my memory is perfect, if I always have great wealth and things, then how am I going to become a little humble? He said, at such times, when we're putting his inconveniences, we should try to understand the meaning of the verse beginning with 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗲. This is a verse from the 10th canto, chapter 14, spoken by Lord Brahma. 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗲 susamikṣamano bhunjana eva mrikitam vipakam 𝗗𝗃𝗲𝘁𝗵 vididam namaste 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗃 𝗗𝗃. That when we accept whatever problems come to me, when we grow up and we accept that I deserve it. I deserve it when my wife left me. My children don't like me. I deserve it that I don't have money. I deserve it that the government is abusing me. I deserve it that this war is going on. I deserve it that I'm born in the time of this pandemic. This is part of my karma. But Jiveta Yomukti Padesa Dayabak, I'm not going to give up worshiping Krishna. With my body, mind, and words, I'm going to be focused on Krishna. When he says at this time, when these problems and things come, I should meditate on the meaning of this verse. He says, on the other hand, when we remain absorbed in material subjects which are not related to Krishna, we start seeing secondary causes behind things. It's because of this. We should have this person as a president. I told devotees sometimes, somebody sent some YouTube video to me and said, you should see what is the real cause behind this and that. And I told them, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I said, but you know, many years ago, I stopped listening to devotees if they weren't quoting Shastra, if they weren't quoting Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas. I stopped listening to them. And now you want me to listen to some non-devotee who's not even a vegetarian, and you want me to accept what he's saying is absolute truth. Maybe it is true, maybe it's not. I don't know. But maybe I'm just going down a rabbit hole. Maybe it's going to be a big problem. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says here, if I remain absorbed in material subjects which are not related to Krishna, if I see some other cause behind it, then what's going to happen? I'm going to be inclined to quarrel with different people in the world. I'm going to be inclined to quarrel with devotees. But he says, when we remain busy in the service of Krishna, then something else is going to happen. We can expect that people in the material world are going to attack us. Even materialistic devotees will attack you. Prabhu, that's not practical. It's okay, you say like that. But what was Srila Prabhupada's mood? Srila Prabhupada went to the GBC meeting. He walked into the meeting and he told the devotees, all the GBC members there, he said, this chanting should go on. Instead of meetings, resolutions, dissolutions, revolutions, and no solutions, there should be chanting. It's a direct quote from Srila Prabhupada. And he's telling this to the GBC members. Don't try to see material solutions for material problems. See spiritual solutions. This is what we're getting from our Father. And we can understand when we open our mouths who our Father really is. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he writes in a purport to Bhagavatam 4:19-34. Let me read this also. This is a really beautiful statement from Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person has to meet with reversals in life. They also have to meet. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Providence is doing this. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals. For the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. We should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna makes a similar statement to Uddhava. He says, Pashyat paka viparyasam. That paradoxically, the efforts that we make to solve our problems just bring more problems. He's talking about material solutions. The material solutions that we take shelter of to solve our material problems just cause more material problems. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, he's advised us in a very beautiful way. Karmi gyani micha bhakta naho betate narakta vishuddha bhajan koro mahana braja janera rita tahate dubaho chitta ese parama tatvadhana. He says, Karmi gyani micha bhakti naho betate anurakta. Don't have anurakta, don't have attachment for the karmis, for the gyanis, or even for the micha bhaktas, the false devotees. Don't worry about it. Rather, vishuddha bhajana koroman. In your mind, just become absorbed in pure bhajan. Braja jana jay rita tahite duba chitta ese parama tatvadana. This is the parama tatvadana. This is the greatest wealth that we can have, to become absorbed in the mood, the customs, the activities of the people of Braj. And this, he says, ese parama tatvadana. This is the supreme treasure of this. This is the treasure of the supreme truth. So I wanted to say a little something about the Yajnapatni Leela before we finish. When the wives of the Brahmins were approached by the cowherd boys, we're just going to the middle part of the pastime, and they asked, and they said, Krishna and Balaram are really hungry. Immediately they put pots of food on their heads and they went running. Their husbands tried to stop them. And according to 𝗗𝗃𝗃 Goswami in his book, Vrindavan Lilamrita, he's a disciple of 𝗘𝗃 𝗃𝗃 Thakur. He commented in this passage that the husbands got in their way. And the husband said, what are you doing? If you go to that boy, you're going to lose your religion. If you go to Krishna, you're going to lose your religion. Don't you know who you are? You're the wives of us great Brahmins, and we're here to do these religious ceremonies. You're going to lose your religion if you go to Krishna. That was their mundane understanding. So anyway, those ladies, they came to Krishna, and Krishna at that time, he told them, Tadyata deva yajanam patayo vo vijataya swasatram paravishyanti yushmabhir griha medina. First of all, when they arrived, Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu, Krishna smiled when he saw those Yajnapatnis came with these heavy pots on their head. And Krishna smiled. He said, these look like very heavy pots. Can I help you with them? Huh? And he said, what can I do for you? Why have you come? He was speaking to them in the same way that he spoke to the gopis. And then he spoke this verse, Tadyata deva yajanam, that you should go back to your husbands because you're doing some religious ceremonies there. Huh? Your husbands are very learned Brahmins or householders. They need your assistance. And the Yajnapatni said, no. We don't do this to us. Don't be cruel. Our families won't take us back. And Krishna said, don't worry. I'll make arrangements that they'll accept you. And very soon you'll achieve me. And Krishna told them, Shavana darshana dhyanan mayi bhava nikritanat natata sanikarshena pratyata tato grihan. That it's not by physical proximity to me, sanikarshena, it's not just by physically associating with me that you get love from me, but rather shravanam darshanam dhyana, by hearing about me, by seeing my deity form, by chanting my names. So you should go home. Pratyata tato grihan. Go back to your griha. And those ladies, they said, no. We don't want that. We just want to be with you. We want to see you. Don't send us back. But Krishna said, no, you must go back. And so those ladies, they went back. It's a very interesting thing. In the Bhagavatam, it said that when their husbands, when those ladies came back, all of a sudden they realized that we're not behaving right. And dig janmanas trivid tadtag, dig bretam dig bahugyatam. Dig means to hell. The Brahmins, they said, to hell with janmanas trivid, our threefold birth. To hell with our vows of celibacy. To hell with our extensive learning. To hell with our aristocratic background. 𝗘𝗃𝗲𝗁, 𝗘𝗃𝗲𝗃, to hell with our expertise in doing sacrifice. To hell with it all. Because of these things, vimukha ye 𝗗𝗃𝗃liche. We become vimukh, we become averse, inimical to Krishna, who's 𝗗𝗃𝗃cije. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments, Tatashcha Shabarya api gurunaiva manashisto. Those ladies became the gurus of their husbands. He says in Sahartha Darshani, in this chapter, twice he says that those ladies became the gurus of their husbands. And those husbands at that time, itisvagyam manusmritya krishnite 𝗃𝗃𝗃, they became eager. Now, we would also like to go to Krishna, but they couldn't. What was holding them back? Kamsa bita nachachalan. They were afraid of Kamsa. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Kamsa, it represents the head of mundane religion. They're afraid of the head of mundane religion, that if we give up our attachment to doing rituals and ceremonies and things, and we follow our wives, which is not exactly according to general etiquette, and we go to Krishna, then Kamsa is not going to give us money. He's not going to support us. We won't be able to fit in with this his mundane religion. So those ladies, they wanted to go to Krishna, those Brahmins' wives. They said the only thing that we want, dehi swadashyam asrami, we just want to be your dasis, your maidservants. You please give us your service. That's all that we want. We all, pashyamo nukarshanam, this is from Brahma Vivarta Purana, describing this section, that we want to always see your face, Krishna. Please be merciful to us. Anugraham kuru vibho, na yayashyamo griham punaha. We don't want to go back to our homes. So Krishna didn't say anything, but he accepted the foodstuffs that those ladies brought to him, and he ate it. It was very sweet, like nectar. And the boys also ate. Madhu Mangal was very happy, and the other cowherd boys. And then the Brahma Vaivarta Purana describes that when they finished eating, an amazing thing happened. Those Brahmins' wives saw coming down from the sky a beautiful golden chariot, a Vaikuntha airplane. And on that Vaikuntha airplane, there were not Vishnu Dutas. Dvibujar Murali Hastar 𝗗𝗃𝗃𝗃. They were cowherd boys, residents of the spiritual world, dressed as cowherd boys, and they had Gunjamala, and they were decorated as boys in Vrindavan, because those cowherd boys were the gurus of the Yagnapatnis. They were the ones who brought them to Krishna. So that Vaikuntha airplane came, and Viprabharya Harim Natva Jagmur Golokam Ipsitam Babuvar Gopika Sadyas Chaktva Manusha Vigrahan. Those ladies, they left their human forms. They left their bodies. They bowed down to Krishna. And it's described here in this verse that Gopika Sadya, at once they became gopis. Those Yagnapatnis they took the form of gopis in the spiritual world, and they went to Goloka Vrindavan. And at that time, Harishchayam Vinirmaya Tasam Cha Vishnumayaya Prastapayam Asagrihan Brahmananam Swayam Vibhu. Krishna at that time, he employed his Yogamaya potency, and he manufactured some chaya, or some shadow forms of those ladies, and he sent them back to the homes of the Brahmins. And when they arrived there, it was an amazing thing. Brahma Vivarta Purana describes, Narad Muni is hearing all this from the Lord. Tasam tato dikam prema kridasu sarvakarmasu dakshinyam mayaya shakta brahmana na vitarkitam. That those ladies, when they came back, they were even better than they were when they left. They were more affectionate to their husbands. Adikam prema, they had more love for their husbands. They were adikam kridasu, they were more playful. Sarvakarmasu, they were more expert. Dakshinam, they were more expert in all their household activities and things. And the Brahmins, they didn't suspect that there was anything different. But it wasn't actually their wives, it was just a shadow of their wives. So for the devotee, there's nothing to stop them. Nothing can stop a devotee, not even death. And Krishna will make all arrangements, whatever is required. We just take shelter of Krishna. And as an example here of the Yajnapatnis, they had some material duties. They were supposed to take care of their children. They're doing these yajnas and things to help their husbands. They have this dharma to take care of their husbands. But they left all of that and just simply became absorbed in Krishna. And everything was okay. They went to the spiritual world. Interestingly, it's described in Brahma-vivarta Purana that their gurus were cowherd boys, and they attained the form of gopis. In the fifth canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 18, we hear about the prayers of the residents of Jambudweep. And there, Lakshmi Devi, she prays, Sriyo Vrataistva 𝗗𝗃𝗃 swato hiradya loke patim asa satyanyam tasam natevai paripancha patyam priyam dana yumsi yuto swatantraha. Prabhupada translates, he says, my dear Lord, Lakshmi Devi is praying, you are certainly the independent master of all the senses. Therefore, all women who worship you by strictly observing vows because they wish to acquire a husband to satisfy their senses are surely under illusion. They don't know that such a husband cannot actually give protection to them or their children, nor can he protect their wealth or duration of life, for he himself is dependent on time, fruit of results, and the modes of nature, which are all subordinate to you. Srila Prabhupada describes in his purport to this verse, he says that Krishna is the original Purush, and the living entities are Prakriti. Thus, Krishna is the enjoyer, and all living entities are meant to be enjoyed by him. Therefore, any woman who seeks a material husband for her protection, or any man who desires to become the husband of a woman, is under illusion. To become a husband means to maintain a wife and children nicely by supplying wealth and security. However, a material husband cannot possibly do this, for he's dependent on his karma. Karma nadaiva netrena. His circumstances are determined by his past fruitive activities. Therefore, if one proudly thinks he can protect his wife, he's under illusion. He says Krishna is the only husband, and therefore the relationship between a husband and wife in this material world cannot be absolute because we have the desire to marry. Krishna mercifully allows the so-called husband to possess a wife and the wife to possess the so-called husband for mutual satisfaction. But actually, however, every living entity is Prakriti or female, and Krishna is the only husband. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments on this, that women who don't know the meaning of the word pati, pratisabdata evate na janatitya savai iti. He says in his commentary that ladies who don't understand the meaning of the word pati, how can a person who can't protect himself, pati means to protect, he can't protect himself, pati, how can he protect another person, the wife? And therefore, devotees should take shelter of Krishna. And if we take shelter of Krishna, he's the supreme pati. Everything will be okay. And this is Krishna's message through Uddhava to the gopis of Vrindavan. And this is a very, very important message for us to understand when we want to analyze the meeting of Krishna with the Braj gopis, with the residents of Vrindavan at Kurukshetra. That what does real association mean? Real association means we were meditating completely on Krishna all the time, and there's nothing that can stop that. Even if someone physically comes, like the husbands of the gopis, and physically restrained and said, no, you can't go to Krishna, we're not going to allow you. Even if there's a war going on, and you can't go to the temple, you can't see your guru, nothing can stop the devotee. Even death can't stop the devotee. The devotee will go to Krishna. Nothing can stop a devotee. So I want to stop there in our discussion. And if there's any discussion from devotees here. Any comments or anything? Brinda Sundari said, our spiritual absorption is shown by what we like to talk about. That's such an important thing. What comes out of our mouth, and we can see. My Guru Maharaj once said that when you vomit, we can see what you've been eating. And by the smell of your vomit, we can tell what you've been eating. So what have we been eating with our mind? What have we been taking shelter of? We should take shelter of Krishna. If we don't take shelter of Krishna, how can we give shelter to, how can we help to give shelter to the people in this world? 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗲 Prabhu commented, thinks it was Vamsidas Babaji, not 𝗗𝗃𝗲. I'm pretty sure it was 𝗗𝗃𝗲, but either way, it's a good story. 𝗗𝗲𝘃 comments says, when we hear this Leela and the desire for sense pleasure is decreasing, we should continue hearing. But if it's increasing, we should stop, yes? Well, Jiva Goswami in, where was that? I think that's in 𝗗𝗲 𝘁𝗵. He says that if we start becoming sexually agitated when we hear about the pastimes of the Gopis and Krishna, it means we should stop. And the verse Vikriditam Vajavadu Beridam Chavishnu, that it describes that when we hear with faith, with Shraddhaya, and that Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments that it's very, very important that we hear properly with proper faith. And really, where is our faith? Again, this is, as Brinda Sundari was reflecting on, we can see what kind of faith we have by what comes out of our mouth. Are we speaking, do we have faith in Krishna and Krishna Bhakti? Is that what we're taking as a solution? Is that what we're offering as a solution? Are we seeing something else? And if we don't have that strong faith, if we don't have that strong of faith, ultimately, in the words of Gurudev, then it may not affect us in the same way. And maybe then we should focus more on hearing Bhagavad Gita or some other things. That's my humble understanding, 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗲 Prabhu. If you have any other comments or anything. And I'd also like to turn to Nagapatni. Do you have any reflections, any Nagapatni you want to share? You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very, very enlivening lecture. And it was so wonderful because it addresses many of the issues that we all deal with day in, day out. And to understand how the material energy sneaks in and causes disruptions between devotees association. And it's very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Krishna Kun was grabbing one of my my earbuds so she could hear what you were saying. Just as she's reflecting that how I like what you said, how material nature sneaks in. And it looks like, we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that we want to be gardeners, but we have to understand what's a weed and what's a plant. And sometimes it's difficult. I know in our garden in Puri, sometimes we're growing something and there's some little plants coming up. And sometimes I'm thinking, is that tulsi? Maybe it's a tulsi plant and I don't want to pull it out. Huh? I had to be, but if it's a weed and I don't pull it out, then it starts sucking the energy from the main plant. So in the same way, sometimes it's hard for us. We think, oh, this, Krishna told Arjuna to fight. Nimitta matam bhavasavya sakshan, that you be my instrument, you go and fight. Prabhupada, he was fighting, and he told the devotees to fight. But what is our war, and what weapons are we going to engage in this war? Are we going to take some weapons from non-devotees? If we do that, then we may end up hurting the devotees. We may end up hurting ourselves. We may end up hurting our movement. We should take up the weapons that Srila Prabhupada's given. Otherwise, it may look like something, that weed may look like something valuable, but we have to be very, very careful. We have to be expert gardeners. Okay, Nagapatni, thank you so much. Hare Krishna, 𝗗𝗲𝘃𝗲 Prabhu. I'm humbled having your association here and other devotees. So I think we'll be back again next week. Next week we have a parikrama, I think, starting in Jagannath Puri, so I'm not sure how it'll work there either, but we'll keep everybody informed. So I want to thank everybody very much. Oh, Krishna Kun says we'll be on the train, so maybe we'll do it on Wednesday or some other day. Anyway, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Ananda Kori Vaishnavrinda ki jai.